No problem. So I will record the presentation so that we can make it available to the people who will choose to see something else, and they can watch the replay a little bit later. So welcome everyone. We will have the pleasure in this session to listen to Jean LaRose, who will share a story from Guyana on dealing with the security of land tenure in times of crisis. Just like in the previous round, we will have approximately 10 minutes of presentation, and then we will try and preserve at least 10-15 minutes of questions and answer to make the presentation as interactive as possible. So Jean, the floor is yours. I think I will be sharing your slides.
Yes.
Okay, so I will start that right now. Do let me know if I'm trying to follow and to share the slides as you speak about them, but if you want me to move on, don't hesitate. Can everyone see the slides?
I can.
Okay, so that's good. You're one of the primary users. Okay, so the floor is yours.
All right, so if we can go to the next page. So thank you for joining this group. Thanks to the Tenure facility for allowing me to be able to make this presentation and to share our project, Securing and Enhancing Indigenous Land Tenure in Guyana. This project was expected to last for 2 years, but has since been extended and has the objective to address land titling, demarcation, and land management of 14 Indigenous communities and to promote legislative changes to support land tenure security and related rights for Indigenous peoples in Guyana. So the map that you're looking at, in the north, we have Guyana is divided into 10 administrative regions, 1 to 10. And in the north, the communities that the project work with is regions 1, 2, 4, and 6, and to the south, region 9. The communities in region 1, 2, 4, and 6 are mostly of the Warao, Lokono, and Carib peoples, and they mainly rely on subsistence farming, fishing, hunting, gathering, and logging as economic activities. Their environment is highly forested, savanna wetlands, and riverine. They also depend on the Atlantic Ocean for fishing. The Region 9 communities are mostly Wapichan and Pushi, and they rely on subsistence farming, cattle rearing, hunting, fishing, gathering, and small-scale logging, and mining as economic activities. Their environment is mostly savanna grassland and mountainous with some forested areas. And in the next slide, you can see an example of the South Rupununi savanna grassland and with the mountains in the background. And if you're to drive for miles, that would be the scenery that you would see. Farther south, way deep south we call it, there is some heavily forested areas. In both group of communities, whether it's to the north or to the south, the Indigenous communities rely on the environment for sustenance, food, medicine, gathering, fishing, hunting, for house building materials, for home utensils. There's so many things that the communities depend on the environment for. Sometimes the rivers and the creeks are the only source of water supply for those communities as well. So it's the total environment that they depend on. Likewise, these mountains and savannas and forested areas and rivers are home to a lot of sacred sites, some of them inundated, and during the dry season, you can see some of these appearing. But they are home to stories and so many things that are sacred and important to the Indigenous communities. In the next slide, you see a picture of children going to school using the river. And this is common in the northern part of Guyana, in the communities that we work with in the project, in the riverine areas. In the next slide, I'll talk about why these lands are important to Indigenous communities, if we can move on. So this is new forest growth. Indigenous peoples have also have much to offer towards protection of the environment by simply keeping the trees standing, and in so doing, provided some hopes of slowing the pace of climate change. The relationship between the flora, fauna, and the peoples who inhabit these areas cannot be overemphasized. Communities do not damage the forests and waterways since they know these provide sustenance, medicine, and housing, among other things. In practicing these ways of life, the environment is also kept healthy for the fishes, animals, and plants. All contribute to upkeep of the environment. Land management is also another aspect of Indigenous people's way of protecting of the environment. And Indigenous people own land, some that are titled, some that are not. And irrespective of whether these lands are titled or not, Indigenous communities seek to protect those lands. In Guyana, conservation projects, protected areas, national parks, and similar initiatives are a recent thing. But Indigenous peoples, as we're aware, have been engaged in these practices for centuries. It means that within the national scenario, whether on their title lands or not, Indigenous peoples can continue to practice land management, ensuring the health and sanctity of the forest, while contributing to national efforts of keeping the forest standing. And this is very important in these times, like at the moment, we have some rain going on in the country, and that should not be the case at the moment. There you have women and youths who are part of the project, who were trained to use certain equipment, GPS, and so forth, to take coordinates, to map their lands, to map important sites, to record their boundaries and so forth. So that is only a photo showing that. In recent times, protection of lands to Indigenous communities have also meant protection of their borders, and the project has supported that to some extent, especially in the face of COVID, where there have been a lot of movement between Guyana and Brazil, illegal movement. We have hundreds of miles of unprotected borders, and therefore the communities have stepped in to provide some amount of monitoring, and there has been illegal mining and cattle rustling activities as well that have taken place cross-border. And so protection of borders has become one of the important features of community work in the southern part of Guyana. If you move to the next slide. So this here shows the people engaged in mapping their land, and of course, it's men, women, everybody involved. If we can move to the next slide. So the project was not without its challenges. As we are aware, security of tenure has never been easy for Indigenous peoples, and this is the case in Guyana as well. Various factors have hindered how fast titling and demarcation can happen, as is the case with this project. Legislation that is not specific on traditional land rights. While the laws provide some guidelines for applying for a title, they do not pronounce on traditional rights and also do not cover territorial lands, only individual villages. What this means is that what the communities describe as sandwich lands. They are individual community titles, and then there are spaces that are not titled that fall between different villages. And in some cases, these can be offered up as mining concessions, can be offered up as forest concessions, and so forth. And therefore can result in some cases, not always, but can result in some cases in conflict situations with the Indigenous communities nearby, and can also result, especially in mining, in destruction of the environment too. Another challenge is that there has been no clearly defined process for actual titling and demarcation that takes into account the possible scenarios that can hinder proper titling and demarcation. A few years ago, a guideline document was developed with participation from different stakeholders, and this was used for a short while because it really went into a process of titling and demarcation and different issues that may crop up. With the new change of government. We're not certain if this will continue to be used, but it is a very valuable document that you would encourage to be used, because it really defines a process that can prevent some of the issues that have occurred in the past. Overlap of boundaries, loss of land in poor demarcation, some communities getting into further conflict with each other because they have lost land to another village. And we do not want that to happen, and therefore all measures to ensure that proper titling and demarcation takes place should be put in place, and we are advocating for that. If you go to the next slide. So there was, yeah, oh, so we're on the slide, change in political scenario. At the start of the project, Guyana entered a phase of unforeseen political uncertainty and turmoil. A no confidence motion was passed against the then government, who chose to mount legal and other challenges before demitting office. And this took a while. Where the cases first went to the Guyana Supreme Court and then to the Caribbean Court of Justice, and all of these took months. Eventually, it was cleared for elections. And even after elections was held, it took 5 months for a new government to be declared for office. And then, of course, with the new government coming into place, systems have to take time to be up and running. So all of this has slowed the process for activities to take place, especially really in relation to legal titling. Another issue that has dogged the process has been misinformation and intimidation that have delayed some of the work. For example, communities have reported being told that the APA cannot give them land or land titles, and we know that. And that is why the APA has been seeking to have meetings with respective government officials, so that there can be collaboration, so that they can share information on the work that is being carried out, and encourage clean processes, good processes for continuing of titling and demarcation. But there has been a difficulty in speaking to especially one office of the government, and how, which controls titling and the first stage of titling and demarcation, because there are different stages, which controls the first stage of titling and demarcation. And various efforts have met with zero, basically, in this regard. Communities have been discouraged from working with the organization. And I guess this has proven to be some form of intimidation to some communities who also want support in other areas, and they have to make a choice. Who do we work at? Who can give us the most, you know? There has been difficulties in accessing information. So many state agencies are the repository for official documents that are needed for the project, and that should be made available as public documents. But sometimes it's not that easy to gain access to those. Sometimes it's because of reluctance to share information. In some cases, poor storage and similar practices have not allowed for easy access to such information. I'm talking about like maps, for example. Many communities, you go to get their maps, and the relevant officials have to be searching to get what they want, or maybe just finding the right person who can provide that information. Natural disasters have also proven to pose some difficulties. Unseasonal flooding has hindered the project to the extent that work had to be put on hold for a lengthy period of time, where concentration had to be made on ensuring food, household, and other forms of security instead of doing project work. COVID-19 has played a huge role in completely stopping work for months, and interaction with communities came to a standstill. National lockdown and curfew measures prevented travel from place to place, and the virus itself made travel difficult and unsafe, wanting to take precautions, not wanting to spread the virus, not wanting to become infected. All of these were considerations for not moving from place to place, not being engaged in project activities. Project
Maybe
personnel
Jean,
also.
we have 7 or 8 minutes left. Maybe we can go very quickly on the last few key messages and then open to questions.
Okay. All right. So the COVID posed some challenges. I'll stop there. You can imagine what those are. And then, of course, there are mining, which has mining and other extractive sector have proven some challenges. We now have a new oil scenario with new oil money coming into Guyana and need for new policies, new legislation, and so forth that protect Guyanese as a whole, but Indigenous people's land rights as well, with expected upscale of extractive activities. The APA tried to cope in various ways by continuing with project activities that we could, meeting with community leaders, pressing ahead to meet with officials that we could, securing documentation where we could, even if it meant staking out an office for lengthy periods of time, and in the face of COVID and natural disasters, providing tangible support in the form of food, medical, and other sanitization supplies. So if we go to the penultimate slide, support needed in facing these challenges. Continuation of technical and financial support is very important on a more long-term and sustained basis. Support for institutional strengthening so that communities are able to understand their issues, not only from a community standpoint, but from a national and perhaps international standpoint, and be able to represent them so that they can participate in national process. And you see there, FLECT in relation to forests, EITI in relation to mining and so forth. More spaces for communities to tell their stories, more networking. I'm rushing. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Jean. So do we have any questions for Jean? If you have one, you can either use the raise your hand function or straight unmute and ask your question. Anyone? Yes, Kate.
Hello, everybody. Forgive me for not switching on my camera. I'm working on a very poor internet connection, so just allow me to just ask my question. Thank you very much, Jean, for your presentation. In Malawi, we're also facing some of the challenges that you've mentioned, especially when it comes to dealing with uncooperative government officials due to changing in the political atmosphere and environment. I can see that for the time being, you've managed to mitigate those challenges, but in future, if there is, if they're still uncooperative as they have been, how do you see that affecting your work? And are there any measures that you envision putting in place in order to overcome that challenge going forward? Thank you.
All right, so one of the other ways that we're working is ensuring that as an organization or as communities, Indigenous peoples participate in other forums. For example, the FLECT VPA, Voluntary Partnership Agreement, which is a discussion that's taking place in Guyana right now, that Indigenous peoples participate and make meaningful contribution and see that their contributions are included. And therefore, you could have policy and you could have legislation dealing with Indigenous peoples included in that. There's the extractive industry sector as well, where we are looking to input into those. There is the Guyana has a low carbon development strategy 2030 that is now being, that will be discussed in broader terms. I think only yesterday there was the inauguration of the stakeholder committee. Yes, the stakeholder committee for that body. And we expect to input into those forums like these and others that speak to national initiatives, but but also need to talk to indigenous peoples, right? Whether it's land, whether it's decision making, whether it's governance, and therefore through those processes to have some of these included as well. It has always been an uphill situation, but by working with our communities and with them understanding all these processes that are in the making, that they themselves can also, from their positions at the grassroots, make those representations as well. So we will continue to press with meeting with the various officials, and hopefully the tide turns. Meeting with the president of Guyana. He's busy meeting with the oil people at the moment, though, because there's a huge conference that's taking place in Georgetown at the moment. So we will continue to press with all of those various angles and areas to secure some of these things that we want to see in place.
Thank you, Jean. We have a question from Pablo.
Thank you very much. Greetings, Jean from Belize. I was very interested by you mentioning that communities are being discouraged from working with the APA. I wanted to hear a little bit about why and by who, and how are you bridging that gap?
The why, the why, I'm not certain, I can only guess, but various political labels have been placed on the organization that we are in the opposition or we are with the government and that kind of thing, which is not true. For example, when we were giving COVID support to the communities, they were told that it's money coming from the then government at that time, and that's not true. We made very public where the sources of funding was coming from, and when I say public, by publicizing it in press releases and so forth. So it was very clear as to where those were coming from. But because communities do not have much access to this kind of information, then they're gullible to other people telling them why. Guyana is rich in natural resources. The interior is rich in natural resources. There is heavy interest in the mining and the logging and other sectors. And increase in indigenous land could also have implications for other interests not being able to increase or not being able to carry out their activities as they are. I saw recently where there is being said in the national media and so forth that indigenous peoples will, once the whole titling and process picks up, will have 20% of Guyana's landmass under their control. But the fact is that many of these communities, sometimes 50%, 70%, 80% in some cases, are covered by mining concessions. So while an area may be measured in hectares and so forth, it does not necessarily mean that that entire area is controlled by the communities. And sometimes it's only a very small area because of third-party interest operating on such lands. And therefore, I'm trying to find the right word, but the rush for land, there are many interests involved, and this could be a reason as to why this can happen. You know, indigenous peoples understanding their rights, indigenous people being part of the decision-making process sometimes is seen as a threat. And if you choose to work with communities and you choose to inform, you can be seen as a threat as well for those reasons.
Thank you, Jean. We have a comment in the chat adding a different perspective from India. Do you want to share that live? Jerry Rao? Or we have time for another question?
Yes, Philip.
Yeah, Jerry,
because
okay, great.
Because he has raised some of the challenges, what I thought that I should share the law enacted by the government of India, and that might help her, okay, while she will dialogue with the state government or the ministries, okay, on the the challenges she has been facing at their countries.
Okay, thank you. I don't know exactly how much time we have. We might have time for a last question.
I didn't fully answer Pablo's question. So how are we dealing with that? We on a positive note, the president of the country indicated that the Amendment Act, which is the law governing Indigenous peoples in Guyana, that they are willing to have a, I'm trying to remember his direct word, but anyway, it's a review. And that's something that we will encourage them to continue to push for.
Okay, great. Well, I can see we only have 50 seconds left. We'll be brought back in the plenary. Thank you very much, Jean, for sharing your experience. Again, the slides will be the slides and the recording of this session will be available on the platform. We will share a little bit more later on exactly where. But I wanted to thank you very much for taking the time to prepare that presentation and to share it with us. It was very insightful. If some of you need a 20-second break, you can take it, and in 20 seconds will be automatically brought back in plenary.
Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know, in Zoom language, the way to say thank you is to just wave hands like that, like Muppets.
Sorry about that. I was just supposed, I mean, I know that we told her for sure. I was just, I didn't specify that it was going to be on the same link. Yeah,
but I know that she left.
To say that.
She had left, so let's go on. So Margarita should join.
Margarita is joining. Sorry, we were just double checking all the people.
It's nice music, by the way.
Good.
It was fast. I thought that it's like the time really died away like this. Right?
Yeah, it was fast. That's true.
It was fast.
What did you do to come to this room? Because I didn't get the obvious link. It took like 5 minutes before I got the invitation.
Yeah, no, I found like go to the breakout and I just clicked.
That's actually one of the learnings, because if you don't click right away, then it disappears and it's harder to find. If you don't click right away, then the only way, I just experienced, I saw the pop-up. I didn't click right away because I was in the process of saying it's actually super clear, but by the time I was done saying that, it disappeared, and then you have to go back into the detailed menu. But I guess we'll yeah.
But you know what is also funny when you break out into the small rooms in different languages, that you really need to be quick to join, because there are many people joining at the same time. I was almost going to Bahasa.
Yeah.
When you switch. So you also have to be fast. But it was really good. People were a bit shy at the beginning, but then when they start exchanging, then the time was never sufficient to share.
The discussion in the smaller groups were lively?
Yeah. Actually, we had Liana from Tenure Facility that she was animating. I went to the Spanish one. And then it always needs a few minutes for the people to warm up and start speaking. But then when they start now, we had like few seconds left and there were more people that wanted to talk. So really need more time to warm up. And it was also the first day.
Yeah.
So, but it was super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a different experience because I joined a group with just one person because I felt sorry for him that he was alone. So the two of us were talking together for like 15 minutes. And it was a really good conversation with Kid James from SRDC in Guyana. And then suddenly one of our board members showed up and had a comment, and I had no clue that he had been listening. And then there was another person. They were all hidden. So we had So that was funny, but it was a really good conversations. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Really,
Cool.
really good to limit the group so they couldn't get too big.
Yeah. So overall, do you have any other feedback on the day? What worked, what didn't work, and any learning? I guess the purpose of this conversation is to ask ourselves, what do we do the same tomorrow, and what do we do better tomorrow? So what's your overall feeling on the day?
I agree with Julia that this was a bit of a warm up. So probably tomorrow people will be more prepared to engage and ask questions, and yeah, I think we were a bit shy this first day, and with the stories, that to have it more, that people be more active to ask questions, that will make it more dynamic. But the format, I think that worked really well. Yeah. And very nice how you introduced it then with the graphic, the pictures, and yeah, we felt, I felt very well taken care of. So.
Cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, I also had the same feeling, like the format works very well, and actually people are getting there. I was at the beginning, I was a bit afraid they may not be able to join the chat rooms or not understanding, but it actually is going well. And yes, maybe speakers are taking maybe a bit longer of their time to present, and then they skip, take away time for exchanges. So it was good, Philippe, you mentioned that that Jane had just a few minutes left, and I think this is very good, like to do timekeeping, even a bit before. And then hopefully tomorrow they will know each other a bit better, and they will be more keen to exchange. But yeah, I think for me the time was just flying. I mean, I didn't realize it was so quick. So yeah, very good.
I felt
It wasn't
the two groups I
boring
was
at
in,
all. That was the same.
The RDC group in French, the questions were pouring. It was really interactive, and I think Eliana, they had really taken your feedback, because they had less than 10 slides, and they did it really quick. They didn't show the video, so we didn't spend time on that, which was nice. And indeed, the second one was a bit slower, but again, there were still questions. But yeah, people felt engaged.
Yes, because when we tried the presentation with the colleagues from RDC, they actually wanted to do the entire thing, and it was 17 minutes. So I gave them hints on where they could cut the presentation, where they could be a bit faster. So they said that they were going to work on it. But I'm happy, Philippe, that you're telling me that they managed, because it was quite challenging, and Théophile speaks a lot.
Yeah, maybe that helps. But Théophile had a connection problem. So Dr. Carmel actually did the whole presentation. And again, that was great that because there were two, it was great to have two speakers, because if we had only one, we would have been screwed, because Théophile was out for half of the presentation. So I'm glad we had the two groups I was in went well.
And for tomorrow, we are fine. So we have everything from Mali.
Yes, we have everything. I have to finish chatting with Marcelo, Julia, so that I'm sure that we have everything ready. But the other four, we're good. So we're ready with that. And we're also ready with Mali with the cultural blessing. They shared 2 videos, and Ilwa was also texting me yesterday. So we're good
Me too. Yeah.
on the content. Yes.
Okay.
No, it was
If
really
you have
more.
any problem, yeah,
I will let you know, definitely. But it was really more of an asking the team stop it in case.
It must be local recording.
Okay, so we will delete this anyway. We will not record this. Sorry for that.
No, sorry, Diana, but I want to understand what happened with interpreters, because I think we need to know.
Yes,
There were
no,
problems in
absolutely.
interpretation.
So Melissa is dealing with that because she's talking with them now. Basically, they actually joined an hour before. So at 2 we opened the link, and they were in the link. Then we did all the tests. We assigned them to the different channels. Some people had connection issues, and so basically they kept on joining, and some really joined at the start of the session. But the big issue was especially with the French and English interpreters, because when people were speaking in English, the 2 French interpreters, none of them was speaking. They were speaking just very little times and just saying maybe one sentence out of an entire concept that was being said. And so we had people that were French speakers that were asking us to activate. I don't know if you see that we activated the subtitles, even if the quality of the automatic subtitles in Zoom is very low. But we just decided to give them that opportunity. At least they could maybe catch something that was being said. Because it translates automatically from English to the other language. So we did that with the captions, but still that wasn't helping. And then when they were supposed to, when we had the presentation in French from Congo on the second round, which we said would have been interpreted into the other languages, no one was translating into English. And so without the English, we couldn't have the other translations. So
but what happened? No, you don't know what happened because it's now Melissa now with them.
Melissa is now solving everything with them. So she's speaking with them and she's making them do tests, because this cannot happen tomorrow, because we have French presentations every day. So we need to make sure that we have the French interpreters that know what they have to do.
But do you think that is because they did not communicate among themselves, or they were not, or because, I mean, they should know how to interpret it. So
I think that the issue is that, you know, when interpreters, and it's the same problem that we had last time, you remember in October with the regional dialogues, we had the 2 interpreters of Bahasa that were in different places. They were like connected from separate devices. And so they were assuming that one or the other were speaking, or they were translating at the same time. And I guess that here with the Africans, what happened with the 2 French-speaking interpreters, the same thing happened, because they were either both speaking or not speaking at all.
At the same time, or not speaking, thinking that it was the other one, so that it was a thing that they have to
they have to solve this for tomorrow. Yes,
Yeah,
they have to
of
make sure
course.
that they have a way to solve this. And because, you know, last time we mentioned this with the company that you asked for Bahasa, this time they were going to stay in the same room. So they told us when we did the dry run a week ago with all the interpreters, the Bahasa people told us, we will be in the same room so that you won't have the same problem that we had last time. So they were very professional.
But please, maybe send us a line, and we can. I can also forward to Jennifer, because this can.
Absolutely.
I mean, they need to ensure that the interpreters are coordinated.
Absolutely, yes. Even because, I mean, even if it's not a very high number of people, still we have that service. You're paying for it, and it's good that the participants have the possibility of listening to the session in their language. So. Because we were really trying our best, and throughout the entire event, Martina and Melissa, they were writing to the interpreter. They were on the different channels checking if people were interpreting, and that's the only place where we had issues. So they kept on writing to the interpreters private messages saying, look, we're not hearing anything. Are you interpreting? Please translate something. And so we've been on their back for the entire 2.5 hours that we had together, but it's been quite hectic. Yeah, but we will definitely.
Do we have some kind of backup? I'm thinking for the Africa session that will be important, really. There's a whole session with in French. Do we have some kind of backup if it doesn't work with these interpreters?
We will make sure that it works. I mean, if they don't manage now, tomorrow we will connect with them again, and they will have to just try, and they will have to make it happen. We will stay with them until they don't understand and find a way to do this properly. They have to.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise they have to change interpreters.
Yeah, exactly. They have to find a solution. So we're
Okay,
doing
let
that
me
now, and then
know.
we'll let you. I will definitely update you, Julia, as soon as Melissa is finished.
And I can write to Jennifer. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, because it's also
You're
taking
welcome.
care about this. Yeah.
But other than this logistical issue, is there anything else, like Philippe was saying, that you would suggest that we do differently, or we keep the same format for tomorrow? Tomorrow, we also have the presentation from Jeff and Indufor colleagues. So we briefed them on Monday. We had a very good call with them. So they're well prepared also for the event.
I think this works really well. So just keep on.
Well, one thing that I would probably change is that you might not have seen it because you would have joined the group, the debrief group, relatively quick, but we were lagging a bit behind for the people who didn't know how to join a group. Some of them struggled to join a group. So I think my recommendation for tomorrow would be that we pre-assign the groups based on the language we know people are speaking. But I think we should try and I know it's on our side, it's also a nightmare because their Zoom name is not necessarily their participant name. Like there was a guy, he was called a Zoom user. So good luck to know who Zoom user is. But I don't know. We'll talk about that with the team, but I think maybe we can smoothen that a little bit. The dispatching of people for the last round.
Yeah, but we ourselves in a Tenure facility, we have already been distributing among the different chat rooms. I mean, for the presentation, you're saying, Philippe, or for the
No. I
discussion
mean for the discussion.
Ah,
I think
okay. Because
the
for the
presentation it
we
worked.
have,
I think
it
people
worked very
found.
well.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Which
So
is, by the way,
sign us.
surprising
So
because
let us cool.
yeah.
Okay.
We'll debrief on that process to understand exactly how we can smoothen it. Okay. Great. So more of the same and a little bit better.
Yeah. Looking forward
Great.
to tomorrow. And thank you very much.
I was just trying to see the Zoom user, which language he used, because I saw
he was French.
chatting.
He was French. He
French.
was he was in the RDC presentation and he was speaking French.
Ah, okay. Thanks a lot, guys, and Philippe, good night.
Thank you. It's soon 1 a.m.
Thanks, Margarita.
Bye.
Thanks, Julia. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Ellie.
Bye. Team, should we just stay here? Because we have Melissa on the other side with Martina and the interpreters. Just a second.
I don't understand why people keep joining. We keep having people in the waiting room. What do they think? Go home now. Go home.
No, they have nowhere to go. They're bored. Martina and Melissa will join when Melissa's done with the interpreters. I don't know if you can hear her, but she's like getting really angry.
I see.
Mm.
I can hear her speak loud, but you know, between an angry Italian and just an Italian, it's hard to tell because you talk loud.
That's the way we are.
Yeah. But it's a lot worse with the Chinese. Chinese, you always feel they're arguing when you listen to them.
Yeah, you must have some experience because you're in Asia, so probably you have more experience than we do. Okay, so first of all, thank you guys, because it was really 2.5 stressful hours. Which were actually, yes, very quick. I mean, I'll just say, no, sono finito. Which were really quick. It was good that it was quick for participants, but it was also like super fast for us, and stressful because we had these technical issues. So I was also quite amazed of the fact that it didn't go that bad when people had to choose the presentation, but then when we had to send them in the groups by language, it just became so difficult. So I agree with you, Philippe, that we should really make that super easy tomorrow. It's
How many people did you have in plenary during the presentations?
so on the first round, Martina sent a screenshot because I was asking.
But you don't see the plenary, or do you?
Yeah, no, you do. You do. Martina sent a screenshot in, it was like 60 people in plenary, and in the others we had about 30 people in each room.
Which
had
is good
60
because in plenary you would have also all the translators. So it's actually relatively even.
That means almost only about 20 people didn't go to any group.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because,
no,
because
the
it's
first one
really
was
curious.
good.
It's really curious because the technical act of joining a group was exactly the same between presentations and discussions. So either the people who were stuck in the discussions were also stuck in the presentations and they were forced to listen to whatever was in plenary, which by the way is fine because there was the translation. So whatever was being spoken would have been useful for them. Ah, yeah, okay, sorry. I assumed there was translation.
Yeah, and
Maybe.
that's why, and also, Philippe, I wasn't telling Julia because I didn't understand exactly what happened, but I understood that there was no relay translation. So basically in the first round also when... Oh, we can come back to plenary? Okay, we can all go back to plenary. We have Melissa and Martina as well.
Okay.
Can we stop recording?
Someone is recording. I'm not the one.
Neither am I. I don't know. Someone's recording.
Could it be me? Could it be me if I haven't stopped from my break?
Yes, you will have to cut the.